Hey everyone, Heckman here with Antisyphon Training, aka Monopixel. I'm here today with some challenge walkthroughs from our Cyber Range. Kind of used to do these and we were stopped for a little while and we'd like to restart them. We won't always be doing challenges that we plan to retire from our Cyber Range, but the hope is that we will be doing some that we plan to retire from our Cyber Range. We're going to try to do this on a more regular cadence of once every 2 weeks with a series of different people. It won't always be me. Serena will be helping as well as John in some cases. But we're really excited to do this, and this is the first installment. We wanted to just bring some challenges for us to walk through. For our first challenge we have binary Shiminary, which it says computer scientists have a very simplistic worldview. There are only two numbers, zeros and ones. In fact, computers represent pretty much everything with just these two numbers. What could this say? And it provides us with a binary string. And it doesn't represent pretty much everything. It entirely represents everything, unless we're talking about quantum computers. So this is entirely how a computer would represent a type of data. If we copy this data, we're going to just take it over to CyberChef. We don't need any fancy tools today. We're just going to use a web browser and CyberChef here, unless you basically have a bunch of Linux commands right at your fingertips pre-installed. So we've copied our binary string. I'm just going to go to CyberChef. We're going to search binary, and I'm going to say from binary. And we immediately get a result back. We get some ASCII text that says, who created the modern binary number system? And that's going to probably be pretty easy. If we just say, look up who created the modern binary system, or my favorite is always to copy this and just take this and go search Google for. Opens up a new tab for us, and it gives us this name right here. If we copy this name and we take it back and we look at my previous submissions, because I have solved this before, we can see that if you put that in there, you get the correct answer and you get your 75 points. Very simple little challenge, but still an important bit and a little bit of history even. So that's our first challenge there. From there, we're going to go into another very simple challenge. It's called Q Are You Ready? It's 100 points. It's worth just a little bit more, just a tad harder. And when I say just a tad, it's a little bit harder. So we're going to take and all these are building on each other just a little bit here. We're going to take this QR code here, and if you right click on it and you go save as, you can save the image as a PNG file or a JPEG directly to your computer. And then from CyberChef, you can actually come over here to this open file as input. It'll pull up a view kind of like this, and it will load that image right in there. And if you've ever wondered, like, you get a QR code on your computer and you don't really want to like hold your phone up to it and look stupid, first off, don't scan random QR codes. It's not smart. But if you ever wanted to figure out what a QR code says without just clicking on a link randomly or using some sketchy software or something like that, or holding up your phone to your computer screen, you can actually just copy the QR code most times and drop it into CyberChef. CyberChef has a QR decode option, so we just go parse QR code. Just drop that right in there. And we can see here that it puts out this ASCII text here, and it's got this double equal signs. And now I know I've talked about this in some of my other walkthroughs, but usually when I see this double equal signs, that usually is an indicator of either base 32 or base 64. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's just check for our base 32 decode. Maybe, probably not. Let's try our base 64. It also seems unlikely. I did notice that CyberChef here has a magic recipe for us. And if we look at it, it looks like it definitely gives the flag, but why didn't it work when we did base 64? Well, if you look at it, the alphabet that we're using in this case is actually the ROT13 alphabet. In other words, like the characters had all been moved over 13 spaces. If we wanted to actually do this with just the regular base 64 decode, we can. We just set the alphabet to standard. And then we're going to get our ROT13 here. And we're going to drop it in right there. And we can see we get the same result. And that's just all this magic recipe had done was just added this extra step in here for us. Magic recipes are often nice that way, especially when it's something like a ROT13 or something really easy to kind of figure out that way. If we take that flag and we go over back to our problem here, and we look at our submissions here, we can see that ROT13 did not work, in fact, but this one here did. That's how you solve Q Are You Ready in this case. We're going to jump over to a little bit harder one now. We have this one called Zip It and Get to Work. Now we're going to notice that the string of characters that have been given us here, I'm going to say this is a hex string. And the reason I say that is if we look first character of each of these bytes here, we have a decimal number, right? And sometimes in the second character, we have like an actual ASCII character, like a letter. But when we look at these letters, I don't see any of these letters that ever go past F, which usually, if you think base 16, is indicative of a hex. So if we copy that over to CyberChef, and we're going to just run on that theory. Let's go from hex. And what we see, we get this output here. Now, this is saying that, well, this is a base 64 string, and the output that it gives us doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I'm inclined to agree with CyberChef that this is a base 64 string. And the main reason I say that is if you look at this padding here on the end, several capital A's in a row usually tends to be a base 64 output, particularly when we're dealing with binary data or like archive data. And the name is zip it and get to work. So I'm assuming there's some sort of archive at play. Let's go ahead and try a base 64. So let's go from base 64. And we're getting a lot of null characters and everything else. And we've got a magic formula. And for those of you seeing it there, you might notice what the formula is. But what I want to really talk about is that if you think you have some binary data, which this is what this appears to be in this case, you can actually detect that if it's a file, because sometimes if it's a binary file, we can detect that. So CyberChef has a detect file type, which is the same as running file on your Linux computer. So if you've ever done that before, this is effectively the same thing built right into CyberChef. So we can just drop this detect file type, and it's going to tell us that our file type is a gzip file, extension .gz. gzip is a file archiving tool, and the command to use gzip is gzip, and the command to decode a gzip file is gunzip, which is gunzip. So let's go ahead and just grab that. We can do that right here in CyberChef. So let's go gunzip, pull that in there, and we can see we decoded right out as to flag you did it. There's another tool called gcat. If you're running on like a Linux system and you don't want to do the whole unzip as a file type and stuff, you can just do gcat. It'll do this for you as well. But we take this flag here and we go back to our problem and we look at it, previous submissions, we see that this did in fact work. This is our flag and it would get you 200 points. Now, if you're watching this video, these challenges have been retired, so they're worth a fraction of that now. But if you figured this out ahead of time, you got 200 points from this. So those are the 3 challenges I have for you today. Some really fun, simple crypto challenges. While I have everyone here, I'd just like to talk real quick to the fact that Wild West Hacking Fest is coming up here soon. We got 41 days and 23 hours from when I'm recording this, which is going to be a little bit less by the time it gets up on YouTube. But the seats are selling fast, y'all. So make sure you get your tickets if you're planning on coming, or if you're even thinking about coming. Get your tickets bought up for Wild West Hacking Fest. Get your plane tickets bought. They're only going to go up from here. They rarely get cheaper. So, as well as if anyone here is interested in any sort of training, you like, hey, I'd really like to learn how to do things more like detect those base 64 encoded strings and just things like that. Check out Antisyphon Training. We got all sorts of training. If we go over to our course catalog here, we've got all sorts of training. So check out our training. Reach out to us, and we hope to see you at Wild West Hacking Fest.